Hi, and welcome to If These Heels Could Talk. I'm JoyGenea with Solutions by JoyGenea.
And I'm Michelle with Bad Cat Digital. Today, we have a lovely guest, wonderful guest, Sarah Noble from AIS Planning. AIS Planning does wealth management, financial planning, retirement plan services, all the awesome things. And Sarah is a recovering perfectionist who is working to live a life with better balance, healthy boundaries, and more joy. Aren't we all?
Oh, no wonder we have to talk today. This is becoming clear by the minute.
My favorite thing that she wrote ahead of our conversation today, thank you so much, Sarah, is the real life version is that sometimes my head is on a swivel, worrying about the little things and getting caught saying yes to everything. I'm a work in progress. A single mom with 3 amazing kids wakes up every day grateful for messy life and the lessons learned through trial and mostly error. That is all of us.
True. That's true.
Sarah, thank you so much for your time this afternoon, morning, whenever somebody's listening.
No.
It's afternoon
It's
when we're
afternoon
recording. Our first question is, of course, our most vital and important.
Yeah.
What is your favorite brand or type of shoe?
Well, see, I'm really conflicted about this because I'm 5'4". For those of you that don't know me or haven't met me in person, which I call a short person. So I love the feeling of a heel. However, I'm conflicted because, as I mentioned, I've got 3 kids. I'm busy running around. I'm usually in my heels all day. So I need practicality. I decided on my final answer is the wedge. I am a big fan of the wedge. You get the height and you get the practicality. And there are so many fun designs of wedges, and we're walking right into wedge season, no pun intended. So I'm really excited.
I love this answer. It's so well considered and, finding all of the best benefits.
I totally relate to it.
It's a financial planner answer.
Right. That's a sneak peek into my brain. I really overthought that. The perfectionist reared her ugly head there. And at the end of the day, I just had to make a decision.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much. I love your answer. Thank you so much for joining us today. So JoyGenea is going to kick us off with, the real questions.
Wow. At least one. Before we get sidetracked by something.
Mm-hmm.
What is the one biggest trend you are seeing right now in your field?
Well, as you know by now, a few minutes into our conversation, I can never pick just one thing, so I won't. And I will say that having thought about this, I think there's kind of 2 things that really caught my attention. One, in the financial industry right now, everybody's talking about cryptocurrency, of course. So that's a hot topic, a trending topic. And cryptocurrency is it's digital currency. And I don't want to get into all the nuances because you should go to a financial podcast for all the information on that. And Money Girl, by the way, a little plug there, is one of my favorite podcasts specifically for women and educating them around finances. So that's Money Girl.
Fabulous. We'll
Good
link
to
that
know.
in
A
your,
little something else for your listeners.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I enjoy her podcast. The other thing that I want to say that's a little bit more specific to my role, so you may or may not know, I spend about 20% of my time working on marketing within our agency. And of course, that is a variety of different things. Marketing means a lot of things. I'm talking to, an expert here. But one of the things and the trends that I'm seeing in financial services is a lot more video and digital marketing to our clients and to our households. And at AIS Planning, as you mentioned, we serve not only households, which is like individuals and families, but we have retirement plans. And so we have companies who have employees who have 401ks or IRAs with our firm. And we want to serve those participants or employees as well. And we're learning and we're getting on this cutting edge of being able to put video out there and content out there for them to easily absorb some financial education, financial literacy messages. It's becoming very popular in our industry, where a lot of people in the industry, even still to this day, are very wary of that or struggle. Or as Michelle had a great chamber presentation just jump in and start. As a recovering perfectionist, I definitely struggle with that because I want it right and I want to have all of the, ducks in a row, if you will. But the truth of the matter is, we're just eager to get started in that space as well. And so we've been doing some financial wellness webcasts for our participants and for our clients, and we have found great participation. So I think people are hungry to hear and learn more about finances in a really quick and easy, approachable way.
I would
That's
totally
what I'm
agree with
seeing.
that. Like, you were
Mhm.
speaking my words. I'm like, oh, thank you. The reason I don't know as much as I would like to know is because it's
Yeah.
always been this thing on a hill that was so intense to learn. And another language. I'm sorry. I have tried to read
It is
a few
another
books,
language.
and I get
I
into it. and I'm
totally
like,
relate.
no, it's not happening. I'm just
I
like,
totally relate to that. One of the things
I had, oh,
in our industry too, if you've ever heard about like white papers,
yes.
you're nodding. So white papers to me are like snooze papers. So they're just not approachable, and they're filled with jargon oftentimes. And even in my own industry, like I'm sleeping, these are snoozy. And so like you just got to get the personality in front of the clients, the approachable, that creates that trust and approachability. So I'm really excited about where we're going with that. And we're brewing up some things at AIS Planning to be more into that space too. So
that's fantastic. I think one of my shining moments was when I fully understood the difference between a debit and a credit, and it wasn't what I thought it was. That was like the moment when all of a sudden the things started to make sense.
Mhm.
Everything else
yeah,
Work in progress.
but like I always assumed they were the opposite, and so
They sound the opposite.
because they sound the opposite, and so
Sure.
then I would read the white paper, and it would make zero sense.
Because you're thinking the money
Because
coming in is really the money going out, and
Yes.
the money going out is really the money coming in.
Because my
that
assumption
would be
is wrong.
bad.
Yeah.
Right. No, absolutely. It was one of those, I was today years old when I learned.
Yeah.
And then you're like,
Yeah.
a light bulb moment for you. Yeah.
See, that's a really easy video they could start out with.
Yeah.
Finance,
Love it.
like
So
my
simple.
thought with those is always, financial planning 101. Like finance is this term defined 101.
And the thing is,
Yeah.
it's just like any other industry where people don't necessarily know what 101 means, because we
Good
kind of
point.
assume a
That's
shared level of understanding
good point.
that people still know how to balance a checkbook, which they
Yeah.
don't.
And if I could speak to that, I will say one barrier that I have found, which was really the crux of my passion of joining the industry, is to help women and to improve education and financial literacy for women. And I only say that not as looking outside saying you all need help, but I felt the same way that you did. I felt like I'm never going to get this. I'm not sure I understand it. It seems complicated. It's easier for me to let somebody else handle that. And learning in a roundabout, sometimes more difficult way, I wanted to really learn for myself. But I think women do hesitate, in my experience, in financial services. And we, to your point, Michelle, like we don't want to appear naive or ignorant. And so therefore, when somebody says, does that make sense? After you read the white paper, you say, oh yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
You're thinking, I have no idea what you just said there. But
Or,
I also don't
my
feel
favorite,
comfortable
I'm just
saying,
not that good at math.
yeah, great. Me neither. Great. And it's like, I'm a financial planner. So if I can do it, anybody can do it. And that's like my mantra. That's my mantra.
Yeah. Well, it's very vulnerable. Nice. It's a vulnerable position to be in, to not know how to manage money.
Mm-hmm. It is.
It really is. And I mean, I've talked about this on the podcast before when we bought the building.
Oh, yeah.
The concept of setting up a separate company to buy the building never occurred to me. And the benefits and the drawbacks and the decisions around that, and then what that meant for other things, never occurred to me. But then it dawned on me that this is how people do this.
Yes.
They move money between business entities in a way so that they can avoid, paying taxes on all of that. It's the strangest. And so it never would have occurred to me, but it's one of those things that feels like a secret about money that you only know if you have money.
Right. And I bet that's also what Sarah's passionate about.
Yeah.
Judging from what she just said, I'm like, Sarah's passionate about that too. It's about the socioeconomic.
So when you say, I am going a little off script here, but when you say you are passionate about teaching women about money, because I know you have 3 kids and some of them are girls.
Two are girls.
2 are girls. Okay. I had forgotten. Sorry.
It's okay. That's all right.
So is that part of, like, are you making a really deliberate effort to teach your kids about money? And are you approaching your girls differently than your son?
Ooh, great questions. I would love to go off script and tell you what I think about that. I will back up only slightly in my story and tell you that just like every one of your listeners, I've gone through some hard things. And having gone through some of the hard things, I learned the hard way, the school of hard knocks, that I was not an active participant in the family finances before ending up on my own. And because of that, I learned through experience, being tossed right into the fire, that trial by fire, or whatever they say, is like I had to learn how to manage my money. And I even think those words, manage money, I don't think people know what that exactly means. And so what I meant by that was I had to create a budget on my own. I had to figure out where money was coming in and what money was going out. And I had to make sure I was still accomplishing all the goals that I had for myself and for my children, like saving for their future and having an emergency fund, and still being able to put money aside for my own goals that I have for retirement. And it was having a game plan. And that's what I meant by managing money. I needed to create a financial game plan all by myself. And short of, managing my own checking account in college, which entails of just having enough money to buy macaroni at the end of the week, I really didn't have a lot of experience doing that. My early years in the financial services industry were spent recruiting financial advisors. So I haven't been an advisor myself for a terribly long period of time. I've been in the industry as an advisor for only about 5 out of the past 11 years inside the industry. So I was brand new. I was really, in all senses, just starting out, learning some financial concepts. Doing so what I would call later in life, then I really became passionate about helping other women break down some of those barriers of, I'm not good at math, this is complicated, I don't know, I'm married, I just trust my partner. Those are all great, that's great, and you should be involved and you should be a part of the plan. Because in my experience working with couples, we approach money differently, and that's okay. It's just the same way we approach the thermostat in our houses, and it's the same way we approach watching movies differently and thinking about books differently, and all of those types of things. It's just inherently some differences in the way our brain processes information. So I think it's really important for women to be a part of the plan, even if they don't want to be the sole accountability partner for everything or decision maker. No problem. That being said, to answer your questions about my daughters, my mantra there is more as caught than taught. So I'm very deliberate with verbalizing the decisions that I'm making about my own money in front of all 3 of my children. I don't know that I'm doing anything differently with my daughters than I am with my sons, which is actually intentional. I think when I have done research on how we educate men and women differently about money, it starts from when they're very young. Very, very young. We talk to boys differently than we talk to little girls about money. So part of my goal in strategy and all that is just to talk to my children all exactly the same. If we're walking through a store, for example, I'm in Costco, the fabulous Costco, and walking down one of the aisles, I thought, I said out loud, those curtains, those are so cute. I really love those. And my oldest daughter, who's 16, said, you should get those, Mom. You should get those. I like those. And I said, you know what? I'm going to sleep on it. And so I help them understand the delayed gratification and some of the weak spots that I personally felt I had around spending and saving. Talking, my oldest daughter got her first job, and it's, hey, let's start right away. You're 16. Every single paycheck, we're going to allocate a certain percent that's going to go into your savings account. And then we talked about goals and dreams for her savings accounts and things like that. So it's just, it's never a lecture. It's never me telling them. It's me just sharing how I think about my own money and knowing that they're watching. I think that's the most impactful way to talk to kids and women in my own, like my whole thing is be vulnerable. I just tell everybody right where I'm at. I tell people I didn't know what I was doing. I needed help, because I think that builds the trust very quickly with women. And they want to know that it's okay to feel all those things too.
Awesome. Yeah. Awesome answer.
Yes.
I actually think that you might have answered the next question, which is, what do your clients or customers need from you right now? Because you're talking about education and vulnerability and, just partnership and being okay where you're at, wherever you're at.
Yeah, you definitely took the words out of my mouth. The only other thing that I will add, and so since I have come on board at AIS Planning, I've been here for about 3 years. And what I will say is, of course, in that amount of time, if you can think back 3 years, there has always been something, whether it's political, whether it's economical, whether it's a pandemic, there's always been something. And it's teaching me that there will always be something. But where I'm going with that is what clients often need is reassurance from financial advisors. We do proactive outreach, but we also have clients who call in and say, oh, I don't know about the market today, Sarah, everything's down. I'm worried about my investments. What do you think I need to do? And oftentimes it's just verbalize that. I just need someone to listen to me. I need someone to reassure me that we vetted all of this when we created the plan. We have a long-term view with your money, and we are diversified. And it's just that reassurance that we have a plan and that all kinds of things are going to happen in between, but we love what you're doing. And sometimes, sure, there are changes that need to be made, but oftentimes when, even the political unrest we're seeing right now between Russia and Ukraine, it makes people feel uneasy. And what happens with that is anytime there's uncertainty, the market responds. The market responds to uncertainty. And we see that over and over again, no matter what that uncertainty is. And so a lot of times I think our clients do rely on us for reassurance. And as you said, Michelle, partnership, real, true partnership. We know deeply who our clients are, what their values are, what motivates them. And that partnership gives us the power to speak into their life and say, Michelle, I know what you care about. And I know we're on track for that because we've had all of those deep discussions and we know you really well.
Awesome.
I really just in the moment as we're talking about this, I just really want to share this. And it's the fact that, Sarah, what you do is so valuable. And I know this as a younger person, I've always kind of viewed the financial planning aspect of it as you're advising me about later. But
sure.
We don't know what later is.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so in the last year, my father has passed away. So I got at what later means and what a financial planner means in that environment. And my father was terrified of them. So he did not have one. He had one relationships with companies.
Yeah.
It's been torture.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The opportunity to have that same thing you're talking about, that advising happening in preparation when someone passes, having that same kind of advisor, priceless I know it would have been priceless. And another thing is, as I have my mom obviously is also getting at retirement age and other people in my life, all of a sudden that planner that you rarely talked to,
becomes your best friend.
Becomes very important.
You're having some really deep conversations about how does this money spread out? Where is all the money coming? It's fascinated me, and it's not something I understood or was ever talked about in my 30s or 40s.
Sure.
Right.
And if I didn't have access to that. So as you were talking about things, I'm like, I think a lot of people, women in particular, because I've talked to my girlfriends about some of this stuff, they have been really hesitant. They're like, well, it's not that big a deal. I've got time.
Sure.
And I'm like, no, you don't, to all of that.
So I was on vacation last week.
Yeah.
And I own a business, and I own a business by myself, and I went on vacation with a partner, and we're still finalizing. Yeah. We're still in the final stages of final paperwork for the business, for the building purchase, which is a separate business that's jointly held. And so how irresponsible would I be if I didn't leave a plan behind?
Right.
And we have our 18-year-old nephew lives with us. We've got, and we don't have small children. See, I think a lot of people think that things like this are about disaster planning, or if you have small children, or, they'll wait for things like, we're not going to deal with this until this stage. But it's a prevention thing. And how horrible if I were to be in an accident and stuck a state away, or 2 or 3, or to die 2 or 3 states away, and not have left some semblance of a plan.
Draft.
Yeah. All of that goes into, I am just incredibly fascinated by behavioral finance. So some of my colleagues are really fascinated by the mathematics behind finance, or the investing, and they're really passionate about that. I really enjoy behavioral finance. And to your point, Michelle, it's so fascinating, the psychology behind why we feel the way we do, because I bet if you went out and we took a survey right now, and I'm sure I could do a Google search and find one that's been done. If we said, do you want a will or an estate plan? Would you like to have a financial plan? Everybody says yes. Everybody wants one.
Yeah. But
So
they're not willing to do the work.
Being motivated to get one and then, and actually following through on that. So it's the behavior behind it that's really where I like to come in and do some education and some understanding and just even reframing sometimes some of our old money stories and the way that we approach money. So important to helping us go forward with better financial skills and decision making.
Awesome. I've never heard that phrase, behavioral finance.
She said it all so perfectly.
Oh,
That was fabulous, Sarah.
Yeah.
Yes, that is exactly what
I'm actually pursuing a accreditation right now. There's a certification in behavioral finance. And so I get to go and learn all more about how to motivate employees to make better financial decisions based on the psychology behind how people think. It's fascinating.
Wow.
Well, and it's helpful because it's a big topic. And so people have a lot of emotions around it. And once you get emotions in there.
Yeah.
Exactly, JoyGenea.
And it's about guilt and shame and all of these things.
Yeah. We're checking into a whole new section.
Yeah. Well, in our team, my team is super young. And so they don't have even, talk about, like, I had to explain to them how stamps work. So the concept of handing over a voided check when you fill out a direct deposit form is foreign to several of them. So then I have, because AIS Planning does our our plan. And so I have AIS Planning coming in, they're talking about IRAs and everybody is just like this.
Yeah.
But this is not the first company that we've tried. Mm-hmm. And we had switched over to them and the team just was thrilled with Sarah and the rest of the AIS team. They explained things at the level that they were at.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. You got to know your audience. And like you said, kind of step away from being this arrogant kind of persona of like, I know all there is to know about finance. I'm an expert, to like, listen, I'm like you. What's the real question? Do you have any idea what a Roth is? No? Great. Let's talk about that because that's cool. I didn't either.
That's cool.
So I think it's important to respond to the behaviors of those who you're sitting in front of and know what they need and want from you.
What a cool accreditation.
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
We will have to probably talk to her after she gets that. And
I'll come back.
To do this again. Absolutely.
I won't be opposed to that. I'm thinking.
I'll just skip there.
Yeah.
What is the one thing, Sarah? Last question, wrap up. What is the one thing in life or business that you wish you had known a heck of a lot sooner?
I put a lot of thought into this. I ended up coming to the conclusion that the one thing I wish I would have known sooner, or if I could go back and tell myself, is that you don't have to own all of the things all of the time. And I think that plays into my recovering perfectionist. It also plays into my recovering people pleaser, learning to set my own boundaries. And honestly, in my experience, the more I've let go and allowed others' strengths to shine and be a part of the conversation, the outcome is far better than anything it could have been if I were owning everything all on my own. And it's also created a better work-life balance for me. Leaning on the team, allowing other people's strengths to come through, really appreciating the differences in colleagues, but also clients, and letting their opinions and perspectives and allowing them to take some ownership over some of the tasks and the to-dos that come out of meetings and engagement sessions. It's just been very enlightening for me and lightening for me. And so I would go back and say, stop doing that. Stop thinking you have to be in charge of everything and you have to do it all yourself and no one can help you or it's not going to be good enough. That is a fallacy. And I would put that to bed as quickly as I could.
I love that. That is so good.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you for that. That's absolutely beautiful. It's very similar. I don't know if you've ever read the book Burnout. We talked about that quite a bit.
Love that book.
We had a couple of review sessions in some earlier podcasts, and that's a huge part of it, letting it go so that you can focus on what matters to you.
Yeah. And I think that recovering perfectionist in me used to believe that if you let it go, you lowered your standards. And I really had to reframe that. That was not at all my experience, nor was it reality. It was fear that drove that. And so kind of breaking through some of those pieces. And because for those of your listeners who might be in the same position I once was about how that was framed, you just couldn't possibly lower those standards or think that there would be a as good as outcome, and that was just really, really not true. So I would say, if you're at all afraid, just test drive it. Just try it in one little area.
Just one little thing.
10%.
I've actually discovered that sometimes the standards go up.
Oh, I believe that to be true.
Because you're focused on the things that really truly matter to you. And so your focus isn't so divided into multiple things. And so your standards for the things that really truly matter to you go up.
That makes
because
sense.
you have more attention on them.
I like it.
And that saying that, I'm kind of getting C's in everything when you're overcommitted.
Right.
To what you're saying is like, drop some of that and then get A's in the things you're really good at and really passionate about. Really.
And if you get a D, let it roll and say, okay, well, I'll do better next time if I want to.
Yep.
Yeah, it's very freeing. Anyway, we can talk to you all day, Sarah.
Yes, I would love that.
Thank you so much.
Yes, before you go, I just wanted to thank you for being a leader in your industry, having, now learned more about you and gotten to chat with you. Thank you for creating a new space within your industry to invite more people to a conversation that needs to be had, and in particular, women and young people, making it just a more comfortable space. I can see you're doing that. So I think your videos, the things we were talking about at the beginning, awesome. I'm looking forward to us sharing some of those as they roll out.
Well, thank you for saying that. Thank you for having me.
Oh, thank you, Sarah. And we will wrap this up, this episode of If These Heels Could Talk. Thank you so much for your time and attention this week. And we hope we have, and Sarah has given you some things to think about, enlightened you a little bit, and encouraged you to think a little bit more about money.